Have you been overindulging yourself over the Christmas and New Year periods? Have you been gorging yourself on fatty and sugary foods and knocking back highly fattening alcoholic drinks? Chances are you've put on inches of ugly flab in the last few weeks. But you know from past experience that this unflattering obesity is very hard to shift. Well, Tubbies, has Baggy Hi Fi got good news for you? Our scientists in Switzerland have formulated a healthy eating plan, which if followed carefully, will see those wobbly pounds of fat disappear forever. Nutritious and delicious, our meals in the Hi Fi plan offer high fibre, tasty main courses, which will see you feeling satisfied. And don't forget our flavoursome desserts too, which are part of the package. So, subscribe to the Hi-Fi diet plan today and have these scrumptious dishes delivered directly to your door. Greetings, cats and kittens. Thank you for tuning in once again to Baggy Hi Fi, this YouTube channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community here in the UK. Something a little bit different this time round. I'm going to be talking about music magazines, the music press, the printed word. I think many members of the VC, the vinyl community, or anyone who's tuned into this video, yes, we like collecting records, we like listening to music, but we also like to read about music, possibly even like to read about music as much as we like to listen to music. And for most of my life, I've read the music press, the NME in my early days, and Sounds, Melody Maker, what they used to call the Inkies, the broadsheets of music, or the music press. And then magazines came along, but also in the punk era came along fanzines, and they would be amateur self-published magazines, labours of love, labours of enthusiasm. And I think these days I realise that the magazine market is very competitive, but I find that a lot of the magazines available at the moment on music don't really appeal to me very much. I find them a bit insubstantial, but maybe as I've got older, maybe my attention span has become less, and that's probably because of the internet as well, with all that instant information. But I find articles a bit insubstantial. You see what's on the cover of magazines, music mags at the moment, and the articles very often disappoint. So just going through what is available at the moment on you go into an average WH Smith's. It's quite an old issue of Mojo that's been running for quite a few years now. Hardly ever buy Mojo. There's Elton John on the back. It's perhaps a little bit too mainstream for my tastes. Very often features the big artists like Queen and Pink Floyd and the Beatles again and again, and it's all a bit tiresome really. Now and again there'll be an article I will be interested in, but that's Mojo. At the other end of the scale at the moment, if you go into WH Smith or any big news agents, you probably come across an issue of The Wire. I don't really buy this very often, but it's devoted to more avant-garde musics, experimental musics, world music. This is one I've kept because it has a quite good article on Peter Brotzmann. So quite a lot. It started off as a jazz magazine. And another one some of you will probably buy is Record Collector. Do buy that now and again, but it's all very sporadic. But probably the current music magazine I buy the most of is Shindig magazine, because it focuses quite a lot on 60s music and psychedelia and beat music, and it's quite nicely produced. But what I'm going to show in this video, I'm going to go back in time into the Baggy Hi Fi archives. I'm going to talk about and show some fanzines from my collection, ones I used to enjoy to various degrees, ones I used to pore over. Pre-internet, of course, the printed word was very important in tracking down unusual musics. And so I'm going to show four magazines, four fanzines from my collection from about 40 years ago. So this is pre Britpop. It was a time when quite a lot of bands were reviving, or there was a revival of interest in psychedelia and 60s music. And reading these magazines definitely influenced my record buying and my tastes up to the present day. So from the Baggy Hi Fi archives, let's take it away. I'm going to show you four magazines, four fanzines, and also if you think there aren't going to be any records shown in this video, then you're mistaken, because some of these fanzines would give away either flexi discs or 7-inch singles. And if I can, I'm going to do some needle drops from those free records that came with these magazines. So let's bash on, shall we? Okay, this one was called Freakbeat, and it was certainly a magazine devoted to all kinds of music of the psychedelic nature, both late 80s psych revivalists and also 60s bands. It wasn't one of my favourite of the zines of the time, probably because it had this two-layered printing design where the text is really hard to read because it has these groovy patterns on the background, and some quite good articles on psych revival bands lost in the mist of time. And this one's the Griseldas, the Surfadelics, who's this on the Margin of Sanity, the Purple Things. I think they were a 60s band, weren't they? The Music Machine, definitely a 60s psych band. But yeah, really, really hard to read, especially in a dim light. That's one of the earlier issues. There's another one. Slightly more glossy cover on this one, but the same kind of printing. So in this one, you get the Bevis Frond, Plastic Land, the Dukes of Stratosphere, of course, XTC and the Psych guys. There's an interview with Andy Partridge in this one. History of UK pop psych band The Smoke, and reviews of some of the Pebbles psychedelic and garage compilations. And this is a later issue, again going a little bit more professional, but the same interior with these groovy page designs. In this one, the Shaman. Now the Shaman were going to, not long after this, they started off as a fairly psychedelic band and then hopped onto the rave bandwagon and went ravey davey and had a few hits. So that one is number, it's hard to tell what number issue that one is. Here's number 6. The Mops in here. Interesting to look at these adverts for record shops, Vinyl Experience. There's a groovy psychedelic pin-up in the middle. And a nice advert for Midnight Records of New York, which I did visit once. There's Plastic Land again. And this is the last issue I have, which is number 7. In this one, Osric Tentacles, the Magic Mushroom Band, Bevis Frond again. He would be popping up very often in this era of fanzines. There he is, interview with Bevis Frond. Psychedelic pin-up again in the middle, and nice advert there for the Sundial's first album when it was issued on the Tangerine label, or The Way Out. Yeah, so that was Freakbeat magazine, and I think Richard Allen, who was the editor of Freakbeat magazine, now writes for Shindig magazine. So he's still writing, but that was where he began on this Freakbeat magazine. Now this next zine, unlike some of the others I'm showing in this video, doesn't have an amateurish look at all. It seems to have been aimed at the newsstands and W.H. Smith. Bit of a forerunner in some ways of magazines like Shindig, which would come decades later. So this magazine is called Strange Things Are Happening, and began in 1988, and I think it lasted till about 1991. Just showing 3 issues here. It's quite a nicely produced magazine. So here's one from volume 1, number 2. Features Iggy on the front sleeve, and as you can see maybe from the lineup of what's inside this magazine, it wasn't just about music, it was about pop culture in general. Quite sort of 60s slanted. It included comics and TV and film, as well as records. So as you can see, Iggy is on the front of this one. Quite a connection with the Bam Caruso label. Article on the Stooges there. And also, as well as the well-known features, there are articles on lesser-known people like Richard Brautigan here, the poet, counterculture poet. Again, the adverts are really interesting. Crazy Cat features in each issue. And Brian Hogg is the editor of this magazine, and I think he was the first editor of Mojo magazine, so he went on after Strange Things Are Happening to Mojo. Article on the Silver Surfer, the Marvel character. So it's a really nicely produced magazine, and digging these off the shelf again after all this time. Article on H.P. Lovecraft has made me want to read them again, because the articles were fairly well done. So here's another issue, an article on 20 years of the Harvest label. And now it would be 50 years of the Harvest label. The Harvest logo on there. A nice folder. It says 1989. So there we are. Fold out about the Harvest label, and the back does the same. There we are. Roy Harper, Kevin Ayers, Pink Floyd, of course. The Move, Deep Purple. So that'll give you an idea of what some of the articles are about inside. Article on Doctor Who, article on Terry Riley. So as I said, they did drop in some lesser known left of field articles. Nice article on David Allen. And this is interesting, that mail order from Bam Caruso at the time, you could get double pack cassettes, which built up a complete library of rare and strange 60s music. So UK Psychedelia, 2 volumes, folk rock, Dutch rock, pop psych, USA West Coast trip, 60s spy music, USA garage, beat music and country rock. Article there on the Dutch garage band Q65. Really, as I said, nicely produced magazine. Here's the lengthy article on Harvest Records. Some interesting ads. Ad there for Atom Heart Mother. So yeah, it builds itself. Strange Things Are Happening build itself as the music, film and fun magazine, featuring in-depth meanderings into the 60s with histories of both well-known and obscure groups and artists. And this is number 7 from spring 1990. Featured a free record in this one, which I will play a needle drop from. So this has an article on the early days of Bob Dylan, 1960 to 1964. An article on Moondog as well. Nice, fairly long article on Nick Drake. Now this is an obscure one. Cosmic English Music was a really short-lived label, and I do have that record for sure. Here's the protest years. including Bob Dylan, Kenneth Patchen, poet, Sid Griffin of the Long Riders, talking about Los Angeles rock points. There it is, the article on Moondog, really interesting. John Simon, who I think Mazzy mentioned recently, who was a producer but also had a solo career. Very interesting to me, article on the Kaleidoscope and Fairfield parlour story. Nicely detailed, of that wonderful pop psych band. And there an article towards the end on pulp paperbacks, Raymond Chandler, etc. and reviews towards the end. And there's an advert there for the Circus Days compilations, which were excellent compilations of UK pop psych obscurities. So that's Strange Things Are Happening magazine. As I say, aimed at the W.H. Smith shelves. Don't know how well it did. It lasted a few years though, so some people must have bought it, and glad to have a few back issues of this magazine.
Riding down the road like a giant toad in rubber boots. All the little children, they run to him, it's the ice cream man. Sticks his sticky fingers up and grabs their loot. In return they get a wave or two from the ice cream man.
Give me some ice cream, man, for me. The little hot chocolate strawberry. Give me some ice cream, man, for me. The little hot chocolate strawberry.
Here we are with probably my favourite of these 4 fanzines or magazines I'm going to show in this video, and I'm talking about The Next Big Thing, which came out of Grangemouth in Scotland, edited and written by the great Lindsay Hutton. I think he started his fanzine The Next Big Thing back in the punk era in the late 70s. I think it began as a A4 photocopied type fanzine, and it's still retained throughout its life a very kind of homemade, very appealingly homemade look to it, with handwritten text. Here's an early-ish issue, number 17, A5 size. Some nice ads that would be chucked in by Lindsay. So yeah, that, as you can see, there's definitely in the cut and paste fanzine tradition. Subject matter, or the bands or the music he would write about, would be garage revival, rock and roll. Big fan of the Cramps. In fact, Lindsay ran an unofficial Cramps fan club, and would also put out a Cramps fanzine which was called Rockin' Bones. Now this copy, this number issue 20 of The Next Big Thing, was a double issue because it also contained number 10 of Rockin' Bones, which was the, as I just mentioned, the Cramps fanzine. So the two combined here. But oh look, some cartoons. And once again, lots of appealing adverts, articles on bands that are maybe forgotten now to a certain extent. This is very much in the 80s garage revival time. But I used to just love reading through Next Big Thing. And Next Big Thing still exists as a website. And Lindsay still writes about music. This is Next Big Thing 21, just packed with information and reviews, and written in a really appealing style. Great advert there for some Garage Punk Unknowns records, the Back from the Grave series. Excellent record, excellent records in here talked about. Some zine reviews. Towards the end of its printed life, Next Big Thing became a little bit more glossily produced. This is had this square format and would be accompanied with a 7-inch single. Article on Susanna Hoffs there of the Bangles. The Ramones would crop up very often. And this issue, I think it's this, accompanies this issue, had a review zine which was part of it. And like the others I've shown, the other issues of Next Big Thing, crammed with very brief but informative at the time record reviews, and also some zine reviews and video reviews, and that would have been VHS in those days. So that's the Next Big Thing, one of my favourite of the music zines of that era. This magazine was called Bucketful of Brains, named after a Flamin' Groovies song written by Roy Loney. I used to buy this one back in the late 80s and early 90s, but I was quite surprised to hear that it lasted until 2018. Well, Bucketful of Brains was a black and white magazine, usually had a glossy cover, but the inside was typewritten, quite small print, and focused mainly on what I would call rock and roll, really. Rootsy rock and roll, garage music, a little bit of psychedelia. And I'll just go through a few issues that I have. It would often have a flexi disc and then later on 7-inch singles given away with each issue, so it was worth picking up. Robin Hitchcock did appear in the magazine quite often. There he is, the Cambridge troubadour. But it would focus on quite a lot of American music as well. Here's an article on North Carolina. This one's from 1985, this issue. The Long Riders, Green on Red, Alex Chilton. That'll give you an idea of the Rain Parade, of kind of bands that were featured in this magazine, Bucketful of Brains. Now here's an advert here for Plastic Passion, which was a record shop in Blenheim Crescent in London, which I used to visit when I was down in London, and a great shop it was as well. So that's Bucketful of Brains. There's a nice issue here with Roky Erickson, the Young Fresh Fellows, the Dentists. Advert for Vinyl Solution record shop again. So lots and lots of dense print to read through. I used to really enjoy reading these magazines. Here's a good one. Had a flexi EP with the Chills, that amazingly great New Zealand band. Julian Cope's in here as well in this issue. Green on Red, Celibate Rifles, Gene Clark. Review of Julian Cope live at the Civic Hall, Guildford. Be sort of 1986, I would imagine, around about that time. This one features the Fuzztones, Alex Chilton, the Monkees as well, and included a free single by Thin White Rope. Here's Robin Hitchcock appearing again. The Walking Seeds up from Liverpool, of course. 11th Dream Day. Really is a snapshot of that time in independent guitar music. Of course, the usual reviews. There's an advert for Forbidden Planet Newcastle, the old Forbidden Planet comic shop. 2 more issues. A bit later on, issue 37 and issue 30, Arthur Lee and Love. Interview with Arthur Lee when he was still alive, of course, REM. Interview with Peter Buck. And Sid Griffin popping up again of the Long Riders. A lot of the Bucketful of Brains' favourite bands and artists would keep on popping up. So these are still available. There is a Bucketful of Brains website, and you can still buy back issues of this one, which I can't say for the 3 other magazines I'm showing in this video.
If you were a priest, I would wait at least up until confession time and crawl into your box, breathing like a fox, hunting for obsession time, and I've thrown a lot of time away to be with you. So please don't look away your eyes. If you were a nun, I would surely run way down to the hospital and cover all your charts with decorated hearts, a palpitating ritual. And
So there you have it, a quick trawl through some of the fanzines I used to enjoy from 40 years ago from the Baggy Hi Fi archives. And I didn't even get a chance to talk about Ptolemaic Terrascope, another fanzine of the time. Nor did I speak about any of the American fanzines of the time, like The Excellent Kicks, Forced Exposure, or Chemical Imbalance. But maybe next time. Be interested to know what other members of the VC think about music magazines, current and in the past, maybe talking about some of their favourites. But I'll leave that up to you. See you in the next video. Bye for now.